We are back. We are back. Second time, second stream today. So the first stream was over 2 hours. We'll see if we can hold this one to a reasonable amount of time. So when we did our live stream this morning, we were on the air. I got a phone call. I asked if they could release Final Cut for the iPad early. They said 1 o'clock. I said, can't you go in there and just press a button and get it out early? This is about 10 minutes before 12. Hung up the phone. 5 minutes later, it was released. Joe, there you go. Just watched Ripple training videos for iPad and all the new things in 10.6.6, and we are going to talk about that. There are things. Thank you, Final Cut Pro team. Thank you, Final Cut Pro team, for paying attention to the desktop version of Final Cut Pro. Even with all the iPads, you know, everybody's excited about the iPad. That's understandable. But we have new things that are in Final Cut Pro 10.6.6 besides just bug fixes. Yes, Torgrim says, so what do I need to know? Am I happy? Torgrim's my friend who I met at the last 2019 Creative Summit, the in-person Creative Summit. I hope we have another one this year, in person, in Cupertino, so we can go to One Infinite Loop or the Apple Spaceship Campus and meet with the Final Cut Pro team. That's my favorite. We're going to go over some of it. We got a lot to talk about, For Motion VFX, the recently released version of Final Cut Pro 10.6.6 no longer supports FX Plug 3.0 and products based on it, including OM2. So here's one of the things. So I downloaded 10.6.6. Your libraries have to be updated. All your existing libraries have to be updated. Now, what I always recommend, before you update Final Cut Pro, make a backup copy of it. So if there is a problem, you can go back to the previous version of Final Cut. So I think I zipped a copy when we were on the air this morning. So we'll see how that happens. I have a lot to talk about because there's some things that you might not know about that are in Final Cut Pro. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Final Cut for the iPad, or do you want to start with Final Cut Pro? You let me know and we'll get started. There you go. Hi, Richard. Please applause for the Final Cut Pro team. Absolutely. They gave us some new things in Final Cut with the point update. And not just one or two. There's a couple of things you're not going to know about right off the bat, but they're in there. There's some things that are in there. So we did get some updates. That's fantastic. Final Cut Pro for the Mac, he says. Final Cut Pro for the Mac. So I don't know anything about the desktop. Please tell me. Okay. Well, let's get started there. Let me see what I have here. Final Cut Pro 16. You know what? First off, I gotta bring these up one at a time. Well, let's ease into the Final Cut Pro portion. Eric says, under the hood, great things are going on. They absolutely are. Thank you, Final Cut Pro team, for not ignoring the Mac version. I mean, your user base leaps and bounds, especially as you approach the top echelon, the top tier, say from the middle up, is your Mac version on the desktop. So keep updating the Mac version. This is cool. 10.6.6 has some new things. So first, we are going to talk about, let me see what I have here. What I have. Tips and tricks, there's that. Now, somewhere, well, wait a second. Let me, going through my notes. Okay, here we go. Let's do this first. Let me see. Why does that go around? Website desktop. Here, let's do this. First off, what's new in Final Cut Pro 10.6.6 for the Mac? This is for the Final Cut Pro user guide. Of course, Final Cut Pro for iPad import. Automatic color management. That's new. It used to be when you brought your iPhone footage in, if it was shot in HDR, you had washed out footage and stuff. No longer the case. Dynamic content. So, new collection. Choose from a new collection of professionally designed titles, effects, transitions, and generators to enhance the look of your videos. So these are, let me just pull this up a little bit. These are obviously the ones that they have in the iPad version, right? So they didn't forget and just do things for the iPad. They ported these over to Final Cut for the desktop or Final Cut Mac. It's FCPX. That's what the hashtag is on Twitter. It's not going to change. FCPX is the hashtag for Final Cut Pro on the desktop. You don't need any other. You don't have to call it FC Mac or anything else. FCPX has been the hashtag for 12 years for the desktop version of Final Cut Pro. That's not going to change. Okay? That's not going to change. So, a new collection of professionally designed titles, effects, transitions, and generators to enhance the look of your videos. There is one big deal. Now, I haven't been able to find out how you can just find the new content, because right now it's all mixed in with everything else. There's no one place you can go to see the new titles and the new effects and the new transitions and the new generators. I don't know how to do that at this point. Maybe somebody who, I don't know. You know what? I have not updated the version of Final Cut on this OS, on this Mac. This is a special Mac that I have. It's fresh install. It's a clean install because I was having problems with Ecamm Live. Maybe I'll go in and do a comparison before I update to the motion templates movies folder. That's what I'll do. Maybe then I can see. So there's a whole bunch of new things, new titles, new effects, new transitions, and new generators. Thank you, Final Cut Pro team. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please keep on paying attention to the Mac. The iPad version is fine. I can't use it. My iPad's too old. I'm not going to go out and buy a new iPad because I'm saving for my new M3 MacBook Pro. And just for me, I like Mac OS better than iOS, better than iPad OS. I just like it better. I like editing on my desktop. When I went to NAB this year, I took my MacBook Pro. Everything was fantastic. I did edit with LumaFusion for the first time, I did edit with LumaFusion on my iPhone at NAB. I would put little clips together, upload them right from my iPhone. Well, one of the reasons is I would film them on my iPhone, correct? I would film them on my iPhone, and normally I'd take them from the iPhone and airdrop them to my MacBook Pro and do the edits and then upload them from there. No. Shot them on the phone. They were right there for LumaFusion on my phone. I have a 1 terabyte SSD, 1 terabyte drive on my phone. Plenty of storage space. I edited on my phone with LumaFusion the clips for NAB and uploaded them right from my phone. I didn't take them to my MacBook. So that's a bonus. That's a bonus for LumaFusion. You can edit on the phone. But let's get into this. So I'm going to tell you the things that I found about Final Cut Pro. New collection of professionally designed titles, effects, transitions, generators. New collection. So that's brand new. Automatic color adjustment. So when you bring your iPhone footage in, it no longer have to worry about it being washed out. You can easily edit HDR and SDR clips in the same project. Maybe now we're going to not see all these constant questions that I'm still seeing to this day. Hey, my iPhone footage looks washed out. What do I do? It's automatic now. It should be taken care of. And that's another enhancement to Final Cut Pro Desktop. Now, I'm not clear on this. Color adjustment effects. So color adjustment effects, powerful and easy to use color adjustment effects for color correction. So they have color adjustment effects now, I guess. Color presets, Apple ProRes RAW plugin. It says install let me pull this up. Color adjustment effects, I'm not quite clear. Use the powerful and easy to use color adjustment effects for color correction. So I guess there's effects, color adjustment effects now in the effects palette for color correction that weren't there before. And also we have color presets. Apply color presets that quickly give your clips a particular look. Apple ProRes RAW plugin. Now, I thought we had that already, but it says install a ProRes RAW plugin from a camera manufacturer to view and adjust ProRes RAW camera settings optimized for that manufacturer's camera sensors. That's new, being able to adjust the camera. Scene removal mask effect. Use the scene removal mask effect to remove the background behind the subject without the need for a green screen. Excellent. Another new feature. Another new feature for Final Cut Pro for the Mac. Some people were saying, oh, what do you expect with a point update? And I said, well, it could be nothing, but if you look at Final Cut Pro 10.4.4, it was a big feature update. 10.4.9 was a nice feature update. 10.6.2 also added features. And now 10.6.6 has once again added features. It's not just a bug fix. It's not just a bug fix. Let me get to some of these comments because they're getting too many on here. Let me see. Under the hood, great things are going on. Absolutely. Oh, by the way, Motion was also updated, and I think Compressor as well. I always forget that, and Logic, but I haven't got into those yet. New mask tool is bad. FX Factory Keypart plugin gives better results. Yeah, we'll see. I'm not going to comment on it. I haven't used it yet. Motion and Compressor in iMovie also updated today. Let me see what this is. Oh, I see. So color adjustments is a new effect in addition to the color wheels and color curves. It's a new effect on top of the color wheels and color curves. That's what it is. That's what it is. But once again, these are new features in Final Cut. I'm so excited. Thank you, Final Cut Pro team. Thank you for not ignoring your dedicated millions and millions of Final Cut Pro desktop users and just pay attention to the iPad version, which is fine. We'll get to that in a minute. But thank you. So Motion and Compressor and Logic also had an update. I also like Keeper better, but on iPad it is sufficient and faster. I tried Keeper when it first came out. It was buggy to me, so I didn't do that. I didn't use it. Andres says that's huge. HDR tools, absolutely. Absolutely. Not worth an update and mess up projects or setups, especially if you have older plugins. Make a copy of Final Cut before you update. Period. Make a copy of Final Cut before you update. Make a copy of your libraries. Make a copy of everything. Back up everything. Color adjustment effects like the HDR tab in Resolve allows fine-tuning. Excellent. Excellent. This is exciting. I'm excited for the Final Cut Pro 10.6.6, to be honest with you. That's what I'm excited about. Got a lot of new features in there, so that's very cool. Well, what about the auto remix feature on iPad? Does it travel to the Mac? We'll have to see. I don't know because I don't have the iPad version. I'm sure somebody will cover that, right? We have a lot of people out there right now doing their updated iPad, Mac, Final Cut on the iPad videos. I've seen a few of them. We're going to point a few of those out. I'll have more on that in a little while. All plugins will be stuffed. I don't think so. I don't think all of them will be. You're talking about the FX3 thing? HDR tools, yes, but still no highlight recovery. Why so important? Okay, that's a good point. Very good point. Let me do this. So here, let me pull this up. Let me pull this up. Let's do this right now. Let's check out the back door for a second. Seeing what they're doing out there. Are there any birds out there? I don't see anybody. Nobody's out there that I can see. All right, here we go. Use the color adjustment effects in Final Cut Pro for Mac. So here is the color of adjustments. This is in the Final Cut Pro user guide. If you notice, it says Final Cut Pro user guide, Final Cut Pro for Mac 10.6.6. So go to the user guide, and then you can see use the color adjustment effect in Final Cut Pro. This is a third way to adjust color besides the color wheels and the curves. This is now a third way to do that. I'm excited. I am really excited about the updates for 10.6.6. Thank you very much. I'm going to keep on saying it. So here it shows you right here what's going on. Color board, color wheels, color curves, use saturation curves. Now you have color adjustments. So we're not going to read the whole thing. Exposure, contrast, brightness, saturation, highlights, black point shadows, highlights, warmth, highlights, tint, midtones, warmth, midtones. So this is different than doing it manually. This is different than doing it manually. So that's another big deal. New ProRes RAW, new settings window. So this is from what I read on the page there. If you have a camera that has ProRes RAW settings, they now can be adjusted inside of Final Cut. I think before, I haven't shot in ProRes RAW yet, but my new Panasonic Lumix S5 Mark II X, how you ever do an X, should be coming in less than a month, and that can shoot ProRes RAW externally to an Atomos recorder. It also does Blackmagic RAW to a Blackmagic recorder. So via HDMI, it outputs raw data. The new camera does. I got two lenses with it coming in. I got two primes. I got a 24 millimeter 1.8 f1.8 and a 50 millimeter f1.8. Two prime lenses coming with that Lumix camera. This is my first full frame camera. And I also found that I can use my Sigma 18-35 with an adapter, and it has perhaps a slight crop to it at the lower end at the 18 millimeter side. But you can use that on my camera as well. So that is fantastic. Let's see what else we have here. I'm going to pull up some other things. This is an exciting update, let me tell you. Okay, here you go. Here's something else here you go. This is also new. This is also new. Final Cut Pro Logic Effects. It has new effects in Final Cut Pro from Logic in 10.6.6. Final Cut Pro includes powerful plugins from Logic, Apple's professional music creation and audio production software. You can add these to your clips for a wide range of audio production needs. So there's new effects from Logic in 10.6.6 in Final Cut. In Final Cut. New effects from Logic. These are a lot of good features for a point update. Absolutely. I'm very excited. Eric says, I use HDR a lot, so good for that. As a dot update, it's fine. And it's more than fine. I'm going to have to say that I wasn't sure what we were going to get. Especially, this is the odd thing. We're like, what, less than 2 weeks to WWDC? So this is fine as an interim step to get to Final Cut Pro 10.7 or Final Cut Pro 11 or whatever else they're going to do. This is a fine interim step. I am very satisfied. I'm very, very satisfied. So, what about the iPad version of Final Cut? Okay. That we're going to talk about a little bit. We're not going to spend, I think, most of you want to talk about Final Cut Pro, I presume, on this broadcast. I presume that's the case. I don't see any birds. I think you chased them all away. I think you chased all the birds away. They're all trying out Final Cut Pro 10.6.6 is what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Maybe they're working on the iPad version. I don't know, but they're doing something. They're doing something. Thank you, everyone. There's a couple birds went by. Thank you, everyone, for giving me a thumbs up on this broadcast. I appreciate it. Absolutely. There's a bird. I'll have to get my app for that bird feeder because I can actually zoom in on it and go left and right. So, all right, what else do we have here? Let me just pull this up. So, I got a lot of comments, lots and lots of comments. Somebody else told me that the audio units plugin was the audio units plugin issue was fixed, but I don't see anything about the notes about that. I wasn't sure if that was a Mac OS issue or a Final Cut issue. I haven't updated. I'm on Final Cut. I'm on Mac OS 13.1. I'd never updated because, first off, it works. Second off, there were problems with the audio units getting stuck in validation and stuff. So I don't know if that's been fixed specifically. I haven't seen anything about it that it has, but somebody else says, yes, it was fixed. So that might be one of those things that is fixed but wasn't mentioned. So here's, as far as, first off, if you're on Twitter, FCPX absolutely is the hashtag for Final Cut Pro on the Mac. Has been for 12 years, not going to change. People say, well, let's call it FC Mac and FC iPad. No. FCPX is the hashtag for Final Cut Pro on Twitter and a lot of places. Even though Apple dropped the X, that's not the point. The point is the hashtag is FCPX, and it's very distinguishable because when you just do FCP, for example, That stands for a lot of things, especially in sports. Full court press, for example. So you can't use FCP. FCPX is the hashtag for Final Cut Pro on the Mac. For the iPad version, I'm just going to call it Final Cut iPad. Final Cut iPad. Just make it short. So, yeah, you just can't say Final Cut Pro. You don't know which version that you're talking about. But let me see here. I'm going to pull up. So I have let me pull this up. Let me pull this up a second. I have a couple of Facebook groups, Final Cut dedicated Facebook groups. Let me pull those up here. Where we go? Final Cut, here we go. Final Cut Pro tips and tricks. So this is let me pull this up, desktop. This is one of my Final Cut Pro groups. Final Cut Pro tips and tricks. I've had it for years. We got 8,800 members right now. We're approaching 9,000 members. So I've had this one for a year. Final Cut Pro tips and tricks. What I didn't want to happen was start getting a lot of Final Cut for iPad questions in this group, okay? Because it's two different things. You're not there's Final Cut for iPad and Final Cut Pro, the desktop, are two different apps, and it's different ways of doing things. So I didn't want a lot of Final Cut for iPad questions coming in this Final Cut tips and tricks. Didn't want that. So what I did was, look, there we are. How about that? Look, infinity. Infinite. What do they call that? When you reach one or the other. So what I did was I created a second group. Final Cut for iPad tips and tricks. This is what I did. Final Cut for iPad tips and tricks. Separate Final Cut Pro group. Final Cut for iPad tips and tricks group. So this is for tips and tricks, not just complaining about stuff. It's mostly for tips and tricks. In this group, we are not going to allow Final Cut Pro discussion unless it pertains to Final Cut for iPad. We're not going to throw you out, but we want to maintain this is for the iPad, the other one's for Final Cut Pro desktop. iPad, desktop. There's keep them separate. Now this one, the Final Cut Pro tips and tricks, for iPad tips and tricks, obviously will be some Final Cut Pro discussion because you have to export from the iPad version to the Final Cut version. So anyway, I have this here. We just opened up yesterday, the day before, I forget when it was. And look, we're on there too. We're on there live. So I actually had that web address. This is the web address. Facebook.com/groups/Final Cut iPad tips tricks. No and or anything in the middle. It's just Final Cut iPad tips tricks. Thank you, everybody, for giving me the thumbs up. It's certainly appreciated. Those kind of things make all the difference in the world. Little things like that. And don't forget to like and subscribe over there as well. Don't forget. Thumbs up, like, and subscribe over there at my YouTube channel, which is Richard Taylor TV. Another comment. And this guy says Mac OS update solved it. So I've heard conflicting reports whether it did or it didn't. Was there any, thank you for the thumbs up, was there any Mac OS release notes that said that they fixed that? Thank you. Thank you for another thumbs up. I appreciate it. Was there any Mac OS release notes that said they fixed that problem? I haven't seen anything. I'm going to just push this down a little bit. I have not seen anything that specifically said that either Final Cut or the Mac OS fixed the AU validation, freezing, whatever, but I heard that it's fixed from somebody today. Let's see what this says. Is FCPX iPad really pro? We know no external SSD and no Mac round tripping, but just today we've learned no way to save effects presets, no compound clips, no speed ramping, no trim tool. Well, listen, that's for you to decide. I am not going to be using the iPad version, but I'm glad it's here, right? So if you don't want to call it Final Cut Pro for the iPad, just call it Final Cut for the iPad. And we'll save the Pro for the desktop. I'm just saying if that's what you feel. I'm not debating that. Now, I've said this all along. We've been talking about, the Final Cut Pro community, some of the Final Cut Pro community, not all of us, have been talking for a while about getting into the higher echelon of video production. Filmmaking, Hollywood, high-level filmmaking up here. We already know that Final Cut can do that. We've already seen Final Cut edit Hollywood films, the old version of Final Cut. So my question has been, since the Final Cut for iPad came out, does Final Cut for iPad does it placate the people in Hollywood? Are they happy that we got Final Cut for iPad? I would say categorically no. They probably don't know it even exists. Final Cut for iPad is down here at the lower, from the middle down at the bottom. Now, it's because it's a point of entry. It's a point of entry. And I'm not saying that to disparage it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's not the high end. Okay? Final Cut for iPad is not up here at the high end. Final Cut for iPad is like the mid-level and down here at the lower bottom. One of the things that I heard is they wanted to reduce the cost of entry into Final Cut. They wanted to reduce the cost of entry. Well, they've done that with the subscription price, $4.99, which is a separate issue. They've done that. They've lowered the point to enter into Final Cut. But I've said for months now, we've been talking about Final Cut for iPad for months on this show. And I said there's no way that there's going to be feature parity with the iPad version and the powerful desktop version. And that has come absolutely, positively true. Absolutely, positively true. The iPad version is a good, solid first release, but it's not as powerful as the desktop version. It's just not. There's too many things missing. But that's what I expected. That's exactly what I expected. So the iPad version, look, when I get a new iPad, I have to see what happens. It would be an iPad Pro. I'm not going to get just an iPad or an iPad Air like I got before. And thanks to one of the comments today was at least get 1 terabyte SSD because that's the only way you can get 16 gigabytes of RAM, something like that. At least a 1 terabyte SSD. So I'll get the 1 terabyte. I don't need 2 terabytes. I'm not going to spend a lot of time editing with Final Cut iPad. I'm just not going to do that. I like my desktop. Very happy. Listen, once again, Final Cut Pro team, thank you. Final Cut Pro team. And when I say Final Cut Pro, I'm talking about the desktop version. If I'm talking about the iPad version, I will say Final Cut iPad. Final Cut Pro, to me, is the desktop version. It's been that way for 12 years, longer than that since version 1, Final Cut Pro. So I'll call it Final Cut iPad when I'm talking about the iPad version. Kudos to you too, Final Cut iPad team, but I'm talking today specifically about the Final Cut Pro desktop version. Where can Final Cut Pro 10.6.6 be downloaded? From the App Store. Log into your App Store, the App Store on the Mac, and download it. Just search for Final Cut Pro or search for updates, either one. It came up for me, so it came up about an hour after we went off the air, or just right when we went off the air this morning. Yes, for example, iPad Junior doesn't allow for compound clips or for clip time speed ramps. Yes, there's a lot of things, but this is not a surprise for me. I've been talking about this for months or longer. There's no way there's going to be feature parity between the iPad version and my powerful $4,500 M1 Max MacBook Pro. Ain't going to happen. Mac OS is more powerful than iPad OS. Final Cut Pro on the desktop is more powerful than Final Cut iPad version. That's what I expected. That's not a surprise to me at all. At all. Does that mean that is not a put down of the iPad version, because it looks like a really cool little application. I really like it. I'm not going to be using it because I have an iPad Air. It's an old one, 3 years old, 4 years old, something like that. So I won't be using Final Cut for the time being. I'm not going to rush out and get an iPad just to run Final Cut Pro when I have the powerful version on my desktop. Everyone be careful updating to 10.6.6 as it will cripple many plugins. That's going to be a problem if that's the case. Okay, here we go. FX Plug 3.0 and Rosetta won't work on new Final Cut Pro desktop version. I rely on M2 a lot. Now can't update. Have a few plugins that don't work, not updating. Okay, that should be in the release notes. If you need these plugins, don't update to Final Cut Pro 10.6.6. But Richard, it's all the same M1 chip, right? Yes, but it's not the same everything else. The RAM, whatever. Look, we've already seen it. We've already seen the comparison between, it's a combination of things. Yes, I think it's the same M1 chip. I guess it's the same. But there's no way that the M1 on the iPad works as powerful as my MacBook Pro or the Mac Studio for the desktop. It just doesn't have the power, the oomph, whatever. I don't know what exactly the reasons are hardware-wise. I don't know. I can absolutely see people using the iPad version of Final Cut, especially in the field, especially just doing like basic cuts, getting ready to send them back to Final Cut. Yes, you can do them with LumaFusion. I've been using LumaFusion for years when I edit on an iPad or my iPhone. I used it at NAB this last time. It's a breeze. It's a fantastic app. Final Cut Pro does not work on the iPhone, number one. LumaFusion does. Final Cut iPad doesn't work on the phone, is what I meant to say. LumaFusion does. So I use my iPhone at NAB. I filmed with my iPhone instead of taking it off the iPhone and putting it on the iPad, taking it off the iPhone and putting it on the Mac. No, I left it on the iPhone, edited with LumaFusion, and then spit it out upstairs to the web. With the iPad version on a subscription model, you think we have a regular updates with new features? Do you think the updates window for Mac version becomes more or less frequent? Well, obviously they've been doing a lot of work on the Mac version as well as the Final Cut for iPad. So I don't know. Are they the same team for both? I would think there's a separate team or some separate members that work on the iPad version versus the Mac version. I would think. Don't know. But this is a good sign. This is a proof of life. This is a proof of life that yes, indeed, they are paying attention to the Mac version. Yes, indeed, we had a lot of features today on the Mac version. Yes, indeed, I'm very, very happy and thankful to the Final Cut Pro team. But don't stop. Final Cut Pro team, don't stop here and say, oh, we've done enough. No, No, you have not. Get us to 10.7 or Final Cut Pro 11, whatever the next stage is, and keep the updates coming. We need the updates. We need to see signs of life, proof of life. Today is a good point that we have. Still not in the App Store for me. I will keep trying. Spot, here's what you do. Don't go in the update section. Go into the search field, type in Final Cut Pro, and hit return, and then it should come up. Just waiting for the update, it takes hours longer sometimes. Search Final Cut Pro, hit return, and it should come up. It should say update rather than open. Where's Logic Pro? Logic Pro's there. I'm not talking about Logic Pro though, because I'm a Logic Pro user. I use it on the desktop. I'm not going to use it on the iPad either. I've been using Aria as a full-blown DAW on my iPad for years. Imports into LPX just fine. I've heard about that. I think I have that. I'm sure I have that. Have you heard if Final Cut Pro will offer the ability to edit the video by editing the transcript? Do you have any insight into any AI FCP will be releasing? That's got to be on the immediate roadmap. Text-based editing, everybody has that. I use it in DaVinci Resolve. I love it. I absolutely love it. I guarantee, of course it's coming. You just have to wait a little bit longer. Look, if they show a new Mac Pro at WWDC, they have always shown Mac Pros at WWDC. Every time a Mac Pro came out in the last 12, 14, 15 years, they always previewed it at WWDC. Even if it came out later in the year, they always show it at WWDC. So hopefully they're going to show a Mac Pro. I'm not in the market for one. I'm not going to get another Mac Pro. I had my 2019 and sold it. I'm not getting another one. I'm sticking to my MacBook Pros. I love it. It's perfect for me. Perfect for me. If they show new Mac Pro at WWDC, they might be showing us a new version of Final Cut that hasn't been released yet, coming out later this year, later in the year. That's my speculation. That's my speculation. But anyway, yes, I absolutely think we'll have the ability to edit video via text in Final Cut sometimes shortly. Final Cut Pro has that via our friends at Lumberjack Builder number 4. Absolutely, I know that. But everybody else has it natively. It's native in Blackmagic Resolve 18.5 beta, Studio Beta. There's two places it works. Number one is you right-click on a clip in the browser and choose Transcribe Audio. It goes through and transcribes the entire clip and brings up a file, a text-based file. You can select the text in the browser, and it selects the video in the viewer. So you can select, and then you can drop it in the timeline. Select, drop it in the timeline. Select, drop it in the timeline. Once it's in the timeline, you can go to the timeline menu, and you can choose something like Add Captions. And then it'll go through the entire timeline and add captions to every clip. And you can adjust the captions, you can adjust the font, you can adjust the background, you can adjust the position, the size, all of them at one time. And you can edit the captions as well. So when I have captioning to do now, I take it to DaVinci Resolve Studio Beta 18.5. It is drop dead simple to do. These are open captions. I'm talking about, I use open captions. If I do a short clip, I'll do an open caption now version of it. You can select how many characters per line before you choose to do the captions. I'm sure Final Cut's going to have that incorporated shortly. Yes, the iPad Final Cut does not have automatic scrolling timeline. I am shocked. I saw a demo today. The playhead scrolls off the screen. It scrolls off the screen on the iPad. Where is my playhead? It's not on the screen. I'm dumbfounded. No other NLE does that, and anywhere on the Mac or the iPad. And Final Cut still the playhead scrolls off the screen and disappears into the ether. What sense does that make for a playhead to scroll off the screen? That doesn't make any sense. Come on. That's ridiculous. After all these years, you can't figure out how to put the playhead in the center and leave it there as an option. Or at least page. Get to the edge and then jump back to the beginning. Get to the edge and jump back to the beginning. It's ridiculous that it doesn't. I was completely shocked. Completely shocked when I saw that. Once you buy all the plugins to make Final Cut Pro catch up to other analysts, how much money have you spent? You spent some money. I'm not going to debate that. So another release will basically one new feature. That's a feature we already had through a cheap plugin. No, it's not. No, there's a lot of features. You're talking about 10.6.6? I just went through like 4 or 5 different features that it has. You must be talking about something else. Does 10.6.6 require Ventura? I didn't check on that. I would think usually it goes back one version, but I don't. You have to look that up yourself. I don't know. And in the process, they break a bunch of other useful plugins. Okay, if that's the case, that's not good. Good point, Ben. And wait till they start charging you by the month for Final Cut. You know that's coming. No, I don't think it's coming. I don't think so. I'm waiting for 11, 10.6. It's a poor update. I think for a point update, we're doing okay. Point update, we're doing fine. On the plus side, the waveforms are always fresh and not updating. Are you talking about the iPad or the desktop? I haven't checked that. Ben says Mac OS 12.6 or later, so it does go back on the last version of Mac OS. So 12 and 13 it works on. 12.6 or later or 13. Get your credit card out then, Michael. Version 11, or what do they call it, will be subscription. I don't think so. That would make a lot of people mad. Charge us for an update if you want. That's fine. For a major update. That's fine. Say, okay, if you use Final Cut for the last 12 years, you've been supporting us. That's absolutely fine. Here's the new version of Final Cut for $100. Whatever. Normal price will still be $299. That's fine. 5 new features, 8 bug fixes. Is that not good for 10 points for a point update? 5 new features and 8 bug fixes? Come on. That's pretty darn good. Yes, iPad F-Cut. There's our thumbs up. Yes, please give me a thumbs up while you're watching this. That's fantastic. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. Like and subscribe over there on my YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, most of the people are on YouTube. Are there any Facebook people here? Let me just check through the list. Nope. Yeah, there's some. Yep, there's some for Facebook and YouTube. That's fantastic. So listen, this is really good. I'm very, very happy. A software for YouTubers, not for pro. I'm not going to debate that. I don't disagree with that sentiment. Thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. That's always a nice little welcome for me. So, like I said, if you look at the bottom, the middle, and the high end of Final Cut Pro usage, this is like Hollywood and multi-million dollar feature films, the very, very high end. We know Final Cut Pro can do it. Where does Final Cut for the iPad fit in? It fits in down here. It's entry level. And I'm just saying, realistically, it's entry level. $4.99 a month is the entry level Final Cut Pro. But We have 4.5, 5 million seats at this point. So we'll get some more with the iPad. Some of the people on the iPad version might graduate to the desktop version, especially when they see those features that the desktop version has that they want. Spot Lewis says, there you go. I just moved from YouTube. Yeah, I saw that because the stream is better here. Okay, there you go. I saw that, Ben, that you had posted originally on Facebook. New content is included in the new features, like we need that. Well, but I like the fact that we have new titles and new effects. I mean, I like that. I like titles and effects. I don't know how to find them. The problem is I don't know where they are. If they're just all mixed in with all the rest of them, the existing ones, somebody's got to go through. I'm going to try that. I haven't updated this version of Final Cut on this computer, on this OS, I mean. I have two OSs. This is Ventura, what I call a fresh install. I installed it completely from scratch because I was having problems with Ecamm Live. So I installed a completely fresh version and just added a few little things one at a time, and then Ecamm kept working properly, kept working. So this is the version that I use for streaming. I haven't updated Final Cut Pro on here, and I will not update. I'm going to go to the Motion Movies folder, make a duplicate, then I'll update Final Cut Pro at some point and see what the changes are, do a comparison to see if I can find out where the titles, generators, effects, and etc. are, because I don't know. I count the removal mask as the only proper new feature. The rest is all basic housekeeping. Adding new titles, new effects, new transitions is basic housekeeping? Come on. That's new stuff. That's new content. That's new content. Sorry, Richard, it's more than an entry level. Not pro, but in the middle. Perfect. Okay, that's fine. In the middle. That's fine. But it is entry level for people $300. I'm not saying the capability is entry level. I'm saying they wanted to lower the point of entry, the cost of entry to Final Cut. They've done that. That's down here. But it is, it's like in the lower to middle area as far as things go. But my point is, it did not affect Hollywood. It did not affect Hollywood and the high-end film category, which I'm not saying that Final Cut, if that's their target. I don't think it's ever been their target. It's only been a small portion of things they do. I'm just saying it is an entry-level version of Final Cut. Final Cut Pro is $299, expense-wise and feature-wise. It's up here, from the middle up. Final Cut on the iPad, I'm not saying it's not capable, because it looks like a pretty cool little app. But no compound clips. There's a lot of things it doesn't have. But I didn't expect it. I've been saying for months, it's no way it's going to be feature parity with the Mac, the powerful Mac version, and it's not. I'm going to bring all these comments up. This is a disappointing release. Apple not moving it fast enough on Final Cut Pro, and they're not going to start losing customers. It's only a point release. Let's see what happens at WWDC in around June. I'm not going to defend the development pace of Final Cut Pro because, as you know, it's not been very robust. But this is a point release that has some new stuff in it, so I'm excited for that. MLooks and FilmLooks plugins work. Okay, that's good. Like already way more than LumaFusion. No, I don't agree with that at all. LumaFusion is very powerful. It's not way more than LumaFusion at all. Yes, removal mask, and it's not a pro-level feature. Steve Martin did a review on YouTube. It's a toy, but fun. The rest, yes, housekeeping, agreed. I don't think adding titles and effects and plugins are housekeeping. I think that's presents under the Christmas tree. Here's some new titles. Here's some new transitions. Here's some new effects. Here's some new this. I'm not saying it's the biggest thing, but I'm saying it's new things. I don't think that's housekeeping. To me is maintenance. Housekeeping is optimization and stuff. That's housekeeping to me. But I like having new titles. I don't know where they are. I haven't been able to find them, but I like them. Agree, it's entry level. Agree with you on most everything except that there's next to no new impressive features. Features I like having. I like titles. I like new stuff. That's fine. I don't count the title templates as new features. What do you count them as? They're new. I mean, I'm not. Listen, I'm not going to argue with about that. Your opinion is your opinion. But I'm glad that there's new titles, new effects, new transitions, along with the new color correction effect, along with the fact that iPhone footage will not be blown out anymore when you bring it in. These are nice things. I'm not saying it's gigantic. I'm saying it's better than zero. Okay? I'm saying it's better than zero because 6.3, 6.4, and 6.5 are strictly bug fixes with nothing like this. So 10.6.6 adds some new, if you don't want to call them features, some new things. Okay? Some new things. Still not available in the UK App Store. Agree with Miss Mathers. I'm not sure who that is. I would say the 5 new features are actually debatable as features rather than fine-tuning adjustments. Listen, that's fine with your opinion of features versus whatever. But fine-tuning adjustments, you're adding titles, you're adding generators, you're adding transitions. That's not fine-tuning anything. That's not fine-tuning anything. That's giving you something that you didn't have prior. New titles, new effects, new transitions. I like those things. That's not an adjustment. LumaFusion versus DaVinci versus new Final Cut Pro. On the iPad, I haven't used DaVinci that much. I know LumaFusion pretty well. It's a fantastic application. Neat noise reduction seems to work a little weirdly. Okay. That's good for people that use that. I don't. People are used to the frantic pace of Adobe updates. Listen, I'm not going to defend the pace of development of Final Cut Pro. I'm just saying I'm glad this wasn't like 6.3, 6.4, or 6.5. We got some new stuff in there. I'm not saying it's a giant feature update. I'm saying I'm glad we got something besides just optimization and bug fixes. Somebody above already opined that the FX Factory Keeper already does a better job than built-in. Okay, what do you pay for the Keeper? I didn't get it. Titles and content are a dime a dozen. We all have invested a lot in them. I believe to focus on real needs. Okay, I'm not debating that. I'm just saying I'm glad they gave us something in there rather than just bug fixes. I recently bought Keeper and it's worth each dollar. How much did you pay for it? How much did you pay for it? Tell me how much you paid for it. Richard, think it has more advanced features than LumaFusion, plus more nicer interface, and the features are amazing in Final Cut. I don't agree with you. LumaFusion is very advanced. Very advanced. If you don't use it, you don't know the advanced features that it has. It's just strange that the things the Final Cut Pro team focuses on for features, AI-based background removal, not something we were clamoring for. But okay, but I'm just saying, listen, this is not a full number update, feature update. This is just a point update. As a point update, I like it. I like it. Does that take care of the last couple years of slow development? No, it does not. But I'd rather have this than what, would you rather have 10.6.3, 10.6.4, 10.6.5, or 10.6.6? Those three had nothing, just optimizations and bug fixes. I guess that's my point. And all the time I've edited with Final Cut Pro, I can count on maybe 1 or 2 hands of times I've used any of the included titles in an actual project. I don't expect I will use these new ones. I don't know where they are. I like to see them. I just like new titles. I like new things. That's all. I've used some of their stuff. Where does iMovie fit right now? Wasn't it already the entry-level Final Cut Pro app? It was beginner video editor app. So Final Cut iPad is above that level. I've paid $89 with discount code, okay? That's 1/3 of the cost of Final Cut Pro. 1/3 of the cost of Final Cut Pro. $89. I didn't buy it. I didn't, maybe it's improved. That's fine. But anyway, that's not what we're here for. We're not here to debate that kind of stuff. Right? Final Cut for iPad looks fine. It doesn't have a lot of features that Final Cut Pro has. Let me see something. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Anyway, there's plugins that I have that I use all the time. I mean, I buy a lot of third-party titles, transitions, and things. But I just don't know how to locate these new ones versus, did they just mix them all in with the old ones? Somebody maybe can do a deep dive and see which ones are new versus the old ones. I guess I'll have to do that. Maybe I'll get a chance to tomorrow. Yes, this is a V1 app on the iPad. Very minimal control over video and audio. Can count effects on one hand, but it runs smoothly with the demo project. That's cool. That's cool. Look, if I had an iPad that would run it, I would have downloaded it already. If you just type in bump, that's the new title. I think we have more than one. I don't know how to tell the new ones. iMovie is free, less control than Final Cut Pro on iPad. No, absolutely. It is free and it's less control. It's iMovie is for a beginner editor. Final Cut Pro on the iPad, you should have some editing experience already. That's one of the differences. Compared to Resolve, this update is glacial. No, the update's not glacial. The update's not as big as Resolve, but it's not glacial. It means motion, the motion from one place to the next. It's like a glacier moving along a little slowly. Let's like I said, I'm happy that we got 10.6.6. I'm happy there's something there besides just bug fixes. Would you be more satisfied if 10.6.6 only had compatibility with Final Cut iPad? Would you be more satisfied if that's the only thing that it did? Or do you like some of these, whatever you want to call them, features? I'm upgrading one Mac to see what the desktop update is like, but I need some plugins for ongoing paid work, so I have to keep my main Mac untouched. Absolutely. Your library is updated. That's one of the first things that I noticed was the library absolutely is updated. So back up Final Cut Pro before you update. Back up your libraries, whatever you need to do. You don't have to worry about your media so much. If it's mission critical, I would do a carbon copy clone of your entire system or a time machine backup or something, just in case something else changed. Glacial means we can collapse multicam clips and have a proper audio mix. I didn't know that's what it meant, Ben. There you go. Only offers what is on the iPad. That doesn't make any difference to me as long as what if they didn't offer it? What if they didn't do anything for 10.6.6 except compatibility for the iPad? Would you be more satisfied with that? I wouldn't. I'm glad there's something there. I'm not saying it's a steak dinner. I'm just saying that I'm glad there's some things there, and I appreciate the fact that they're there. Agree. You're a tough audience today. I'm not going to, Final Cut Pro Team has to defend itself. I'm not here to defend that. But my point is I appreciate the fact that they gave us something. Bohr's continuum works so far, Eric Emmerich says. That's fantastic. Does anybody want to talk about the iPad version? Let me go here a second here. Yeah, the automatic color adjustments effect, is not just housekeeping. Okay, it's not just housekeeping. There's you have your own opinion of it. You know me if you've been watching me at all. I've not been, the development pace of Final Cut has been really slow publicly for a while. This is a good update. I don't want this to be the only update in 2023. I want to see 10.7 or Final Cut Pro 11 or whatever the heck they're going to do with a continuation of new features and stuff. Maybe this was a bump they had to get over getting the iPad version out, and now they have place to go with stuff. But what they gave us is worth it. For some, yes, the majority. But would you rather just have compatibility with the iPad for 10.6.6? Is that what you'd rather have? You got more than that. You get more than just compatibility. I'm also glad for the update, but looking into the neighborhood is just keeping the compatibility with the iPad version. I understand that. But we want to encourage more. We want to encourage more good features and updates. We want to keep them coming. Saving the best feature for subscription. I don't think that the iPad is an example of that. The iPad, Final Cut Pro on the iPad. Those color features we had as plugins, they're not embedded in the GUI. That's the only difference. I'm not sure. Not embedded in the GUI. I'm not sure what that means. It's something different than what we've had in the past. So, but anyway, we have a lot of. I might come back on tomorrow because I have to sort through all these dozens of YouTube videos that are popping up everywhere. Ripple. Oh, I'm going to do that. Ripple Training has a series. Let me go there. Ripple Training has a series of videos for, let me see. Somewhere I had that bookmarked. Let me just look for this. Hold on one second. Here we go. So here is what Ripple Training has. Ripple Training has, welcome to Final Cut Pro for iPad users. Exactly what I said was going to happen is exactly what happened. I did not talk to anybody from Ripple Training, and I said before this came out, they're going to have a free tier and a paid tier of Final Cut iPad movies. It's exactly what they've done. And I appreciate the free tier. So this is a free one, you can see, and then we get down to the locked ones down here. So working with audio, let's just open one up and just watch a little bit. Good old Ripple, they always come out the first day something comes out. So they have a free tier of getting started for Final Cut Pro with iPad.
After launching Final Cut Pro for iPad,
System audio, movie sound effects. See, I can't play from down here, but anyway, They have a bunch of free ones here. So that's the interface. Yeah, there you go. That's the interface. They have a bunch of free ones, a whole tier of free ones until you get down to number using soundtracks, number 10. So 1 through 9 are free, and then 10 you have to pay for the rest, which is exactly what I thought they would do. Exactly what I thought they would do. Have a free tier and then a paid tier, which is fantastic. The free tier is fantastic. I'm sure the paid tier is very reasonable. Ripple Training has great quality training. So this is one of the places you can go, and then there's plenty of places online. Dozens of places online. YouTube. Let me pull this up. We can all agree that for most part, it's a good editing app to have, absolutely. They can't undo on iPad. You can't undo on iPad? Can't you just shake it? That's normally how I undo on my phone and iPad. Oh, that's not good. New content in desktop version simply matches the only content. I know, but where is it? I want to see what it is. I want to compare. Undo is there, the hook arrow. There you go. It is there. I was going to say, that. Come on, you got to have an undo. People make mistakes all the time. All righty. So I have some more things to talk about once I do go through some of the videos. I'll probably come back on tomorrow, probably morning, 11 o'clock or so. We'll come back on and discuss some more. Shaking doesn't work. I know, I was just kidding. I can't imagine picking it up and shaking, but that's how you undo on the phone. I thought the iPad do, but that's a reset, not undo. Oh, that's interesting. So the hooked arrow is a reset. I don't know what the difference would be exactly. I don't know. But anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining in over here. And don't forget to subscribe, like. It's a subscribe. Eric says, no, it's an undo. Reset, undo, reset, undo. I have to see how that works. Been great show, Richard, but for me, Final Cut Pro, it has multicam, vector scopes, pen drawing tool, and so much more than LumaFusion. And yes, I have edit a lot, and I use LumaFusion, but I'm not going with FCP. I understand. Listen, this is the debate forever. LumaFusion is a great app. I have LumaFusion. I can use LumaFusion on my desktop. I can use LumaFusion on my iPad, and I can use LumaFusion on my phone. And I pay a one-time price of $28. And it has very, very advanced features. Very advanced features. Thanks so much for doing this. Thank you, William. Thank you. Thumbs up would be appreciated. Thank you, Richard. Good job as always. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everybody that comes to these things. I mean, I do it for everybody. Listen, everybody's out there doing the demonstration of the, Final Cut on the iPad, Final Cut on the iPad, Final Cut on the iPad. First off, I can't do it. Second off, I wouldn't do it because there's a dozen other people that are doing it already. But this show is a chance for you to comment live. Chance for you to comment live. To have a discussion like we had a discussion today. I think 10.6.6 is a good update. It's a good update. It's better than just having compatibility with the iPad version. I think that iPad is an entry-level version of Final Cut. It's down here up to the mid-level. And then the desktop version of Final Cut is from the mid-level on up to wherever you want to take it. So those are the discussions we have. One of our viewers thinks that Final Cut on the iPad is better than LumaFusion. I think that LumaFusion is a great app. These are the discussions we can have. The discussions we can have. I'm using LumaFusion because I can use it on my phone, use it on my old iPad. And it's a great app. I know the developers for years. It's very powerful, a lot of powerful features that they're not all obvious when you first go. But Final Cut for the iPad looks really cool too. If I had an iPad version that would use it, of course I would download it. I wouldn't keep it year round because I don't use it. I would maybe get the month when I'm at the Creative Summit and maybe get the month when I'm at NAB. But the rest of the time I wouldn't be using it because I'm using my powerful M1 Max MacBook Pro. That's what I edit on. So Ben says, where's undo? Command Z works too. Found it. He said he found it. Thanks, Richard. You're the best. Hey, thank you. Thank you. That's what a nice compliment. I really appreciate people making compliments. But we'll see if we come back on tomorrow. Looking forward to the next show. Absolutely. So what's going to happen is I am going to LumaFusion is better. Yep, I think it is. I think it's at least on par. I would use LumaFusion because I can. Yes, have a great day. I think we all having a great day. It's a win-win. So LumaFusion is way better. See, there's differences of opinion, and it's not a matter of who's right and who's wrong. I like LumaFusion. I think LumaFusion is a fantastic app. I'm not saying that Final Cut Pro is not. Final Cut on the iPad is not. I use the same, Richard, and my iMac Pro still runs amazingly well. There you go. So, but I can use LumaFusion now without buying a new iPad. I already paid for it once. Don't have to pay a monthly subscription. I can use it on my phone, and I can use it on my desktop. And it's very powerful. It's got a lot of hidden features and a very, very friendly community, just like, for the most part, Final Cut Pro has. Okay, I'm going to get out of here. I'll try to be back tomorrow, maybe at 11, something like that. After I get to watch some of the YouTube videos, we'll see what's going on with Final Cut iPad. I'm calling it Final Cut iPad. And like I said, FCPX is the desktop version. FCPX, the hashtag FCPX on Twitter and elsewhere, is the desktop version. You got to get a different hashtag for the iPad version. You can call it Final Cut Pro Junior, Final Cut Junior. I mean, that's fine. That's what I started using that nickname the other day, which is fine. Final Cut Junior. It's not a put down. It's just that it's down the lower half of the echelon of price and features. Doesn't have all the features of the desktop. I never expected it to. Looks like a very, very cool app, though. Very cool app. If you want to send me a new iPad Pro, even to borrow, I'll try Final Cut on the iPad out for a couple weeks and see how I like it. Other than that, adios. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for all the thumbs up on today's show. Matthew says, what's up, Richard? You have come at the very end of the broadcast for today. But Matthew, we're going to come back tomorrow for more discussion, probably about 11 o'clock or so. I have some things that I have to do in the morning. For me, the 10.6.6 is a thumbs up because it has more than just compatibility. People were saying it's going to have nothing but compatibility. I said, that would be bad. That would be very bad. Why would I even update if it only had compatibility with the iPad version when I'm not updating the iPad? I'm not using the iPad version. Why would it even have? I wouldn't even bother updating, but it has other things as well. I've updated one version. I made a copy of the old version first. I updated one version of Final Cut Pro so far. I'd still like to know where all the new effects and transitions and titles are. I don't know how to find the new ones. I guess they're all blended in there. I have 10.6.6 now. Talked with an Apple guy, and he stated if the next update is to 10.7, no charge, but if it goes to 11, he does not know the purchase choices. That would be fine. That would make sense. Thanks, Richard, for everything you have done today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you. I've been talking for 4 hours on Final Cut Pro. That is enough. That's enough. I'm going to hang up here. Thank you for tuning in today. If you didn't catch the first live stream, there's a live stream from this morning. It's over 2 hours long, where we got a call from Apple, and we talked them into releasing the iPad version an hour early. They were supposed to release it at 1 o'clock. We talked on the phone. I said, can't you just go in there and press the button to update it, to get it out now? This was like 10 minutes before 12 Eastern time. Hung up. Within 5 minutes, the update was out. It was out like a couple minutes before noon. So that's because of you watching the show and letting Apple know what you think. I'll try to be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Let's just say 11 o'clock. I'll let you know. Follow on the YouTube channel, follow on Facebook or on Twitter, and we'll continue this discussion of Final Cut Pro 10.6.6. I can see on Monterey. Update I can see on Monterey. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'm going to go down and take a little break, and then I'll get back on YouTube and start checking some of these videos out. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you all. Thanks to the Final Cut Pro team for Final Cut Pro 10.6.6. Thank you very much. I will talk to everybody later.